I'm constantly amazed at the number of sailors I meet who use the weather forecasting app Windy that don't know about the distance and planning feature. Now, the feature is fantastic. I use it all the time. I never plan a trip without using it. And yeah, it really makes trip planning a lot easier and more informative. So I thought I'd put together a video on it. Okay, so we've opened up the Windy app. It opens up for me in Southern Africa. And I thought we would plan a trip from Durban to Port Elizabeth. Okay, let's go Richards Bay to Port Elizabeth. There's a lot of overseas sailors here in Richards Bay at the moment that are sailing down the east coast on their way to Cape Town to carry on with their circumnavigations. So yeah, let's do a trip. We'll plan a trip Richards Bay down the east coast to Port Elizabeth. Okay, so this is where you start. You go to the menu, and there it is, distance and planning. Okay, so it opens up that window, and what you do now is you plot your course. So we're going Richards Bay. We're going to do it all in one go, hopefully. And we taper our course in to PE. Okay, so that's quite a broad course. It hasn't got too much detail in it, as we're probably going visiting a few cows over here or something. I generally do a broad plan, and then once I get closer to departure, I do a much more detailed plan. So you'd zoom in, right, and you would track what you believe your actual course would be a lot closer. But as a broad plan, this is it. And so the first thing we're going to do, the first thing it's going to show us is there's your distance, 466 nautical miles. So part of passage planning, we already know how long our passage is. If you look over here, it tells us how long it's going to take us. Okay, so before we do that, we need to go onto boat, and there you put in your expected average speed. So we're expecting to average 5 knots. Okay, I normally work on 5 knots. On this trip you'd probably go a bit faster, maybe 6-7 knots because of the current, but you know, I normally work on 5 knots. So we plug 5 in, and it then gives us the trip duration. So you can see here 3 days and 23 hours. Okay, so we know it's a 466 mile trip, and we know it's going to take us 4 days at an average of 5 knots. Okay, but this is where it gets interesting. Right? If you can now slide your trip to wherever you're wanting to start. So let's assume that we wanted to start our trip midday on Thursday. So you scrolled it across to 12 o'clock on Thursday. It tells us when we're going to complete the trip. 11 o'clock on Monday is when we would expect to be at our destination. So that's nice and easy. You don't have to puzzle it out. Okay, but this is where the beauty comes in. You now take your cursor and you put it down into this row of data here, and you slide it along. So let's just go to our starting point, Richards Bay, and you'll see the wind and swell, top line being wind, the lower line being gusting wind. You can see what to expect, and as you scroll along here, your timeline here, there's your position marker moving along your trip at 5 knots. So you can see what wind is expected. So you would start out with, on this particular trip, you would start out with very light winds. Okay, a lot of motoring all the way to Durban. Alright, still light winds going to the south coast of KZN. Alright, then you start hitting some east wind, some northeast wind, and you can see it's 26 knots gusting to 32 knots. Alright, at that point of your trip. So what you could do then is you go, well, maybe 12 o'clock on Thursday is too early. Let's go to 8 o'clock on Friday morning. You just scroll it along, and now you can start your trip off again, and it shows you the wind that you can expect at that position, at that time, based on your 5 knots. Right, and here we're getting a nice northeast blowing, 38 knots, gusting to 38 knots there, and it carries on, and then you just scroll it along. Okay, so that lasts for a couple of hours, and then it drops off, and we're moving along. Let's just move up so we can see. We're moving along quite nicely. Oopsie, we're getting a bit of southwest there now. Alright, okay, but it's short-lived. It's short-lived, and it's back to east wind again. And the last part of your trip, you got 9 to 14 knots of east wind. Okay, so it's fantastic in that it gives you miles, it gives you your trip duration, you got the flexibility of sliding it up and down and alternating your departure time, and then it shows you everything, the weather and the swell that you can expect to encounter as you move down your trip. And what I generally do is I normally do a screen recording of this. So I do my last update or my last trip planning using this feature an hour or so before I depart, and I do a screen recording of it, keep it on my desktop, and at any time during the trip you want to just get an update of, when can I expect the wind to start picking up? Was it 11 o'clock or was it 12 o'clock or was it 2 o'clock? You just go back and have a quick look. You don't need data for it. And so yeah, that's the trip planning feature on windy.com. If you aren't using it, I really suggest you do. And the other thing is that it is available on the free version. You don't have to be a subscriber. You just register, log on and register, open an account. It's the free version, and it's a great tool. I use it all the time. Hope you enjoy it. And if you haven't been using it and you're starting to use it and you're finding the value in it, leave us a message in the comments below. We'd really appreciate to hear your feedback. Thanks.